It's the biggest show on TV with the biggest ratings. And I think we bring joy every Saturday to the nation. Everybody gets there, from the youngest child of 4 to grandpa and grandma.
I'm Shirley Ballas, and I am the new head judge for Strictly Come Dancing.
If opportunity knocks at your door and you have prepared for what you want to do and what you love, the two really go together, and I think that's what happened to me. I would love my grandson Banksy to dance, of course. So when his parents go out on a night out, I'll be teaching him the cha-cha-cha.
What's up, guys? My name's Joe. Welcome to the podcast. Today's interview is brought to you by FanDuel. What did you do with Tom Cruise?
Well, Mark was supposed to teach him to dance and he couldn't, so he sent me. So I spent the whole day teaching him how to dance, and he left without paying his fee. So it's become a standing joke in England that Tom Cruise is the only person who never paid for his dance lessons with me.
You need to still send that invoice. What was the project for?
I think it was anniversary, something like that. With
Oh,
his
like
wife.
a private? Wow. Did he pick it up well?
Yeah, he was very good. Very musical, very rhythmical. Great to have him on a show for sure.
Oh, he was great.
Yeah.
When are we getting the movie on your life?
Well, there's a 6-part series in the mix at the moment that they're supposed to be doing on my books. So we'll see how that takes off.
Would you be involved in playing?
I would be involved with choosing, partly choosing who's going to do it and stuff like that.
And would it be your entire journey?
Yes. Yes.
What is that like for you to see it all from your perspective come out like that? Like writing your book, diving into those memories. Is that something that was hard for you to do?
Both autobiographies were extremely difficult to write for me, but I also found it sort of like quite nice to go back and sort of put some things to bed that perhaps I was still storing or holding. So the first one, Behind the Sequins, I wrote that in 2018. And then, of course, now Best Foot Forward has just come out, a continuation of the last parts of my life this last 6 years, but also stuff I didn't have courage to write in the first autobiography.
Once the first one came out, did you feel like you needed to put those other parts in? Because not having the courage, is that something you were just worried about?
Well, because I was new to TV, I'd never done any TV work until 2017. So when they asked me to write the autobiography and I was putting everything down on paper, there were certain things that were not acceptable to put in, attorneys and things like that. You know how it is when you're writing a book. And other things that had gone on in my life that I didn't want to share at the time. And then I got, of course, being on TV more and more and more, I have then written The Best Foot Forward, and that's also been a #1 bestseller on Amazon, so that's good.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Was there anybody that you had to let know that something was coming out in the book, or did you have to reach out to anybody?
I didn't know, but I'm sure that there's a whole attorney team that looks over these books. When I wrote both books, I sent them to my son first and my mother. And there was things in the Best Foot Forward, the last one, that my mother said to me, "You can't write that, you can't write that." And my son was like, "You still want to remain friends?" So there was some things that I had to kind of, curb around. I'm very much a sharer, as where I think that my mother is very insular. She keeps everything to herself. And I never want to upset family, so it always goes by them first.
Speaking of family, your son was here in this chair. A lot of other dancers and talent from Dancing with the Stars have been in this chair, and everyone's praised you so highly.
Oh, that's sweet.
How did you come across the relationship with the Huffs and Brandon Armstrong and Val, and how did you meet everybody?
Well, first of all, Corky and I were teaching in Salt Lake City in the dance studio there, and that's where we first met. Julianne was 6, and I believe Derek was 9 or 10, something like that. And I remember Derek just saying to us, would really love to come and live in England. And he formed some sort of friendship with Mark. And it's just one of those things that you thought, let's give this young man an opportunity. So he came to England first, followed shortly after by his sister. But we've had many children pass through. I just saw a lovely young lady, Michelle Mueller. She lived with us for 5 years. She just came back into her life to come and say hello and have a coffee. Felix Castillo. Many, many people have passed through. Our house is an open door to anybody who wants to learn about dance.
And did Derek have a natural skill that you thought you could take him to the next level?
When I first met Derek and I watched him, it was definitely a young man that had sights for himself. He was a great spinner. He worked hard. His work ethic and his sister's work ethic were absolutely like something unseen at that age. And I think when you have a talent, but the work ethic, you combine the two, then it's possible to take somebody to a good level. And it didn't matter whether I had 100 people in the class. They were full on as if it was a British championship, even Julianne at 6 years old. And I thought, wow, I was not used to seeing that kind of work ethic on people that were so young. So I think that they both deserved an opportunity, really.
So that was just something they had in them, was that desire for greatness.
I think you can learn to have good work ethic, but if it's naturally instilled in you already, if it's who you are, like it's who I am, I'm like a workaholic, and I'm married to my industry, and I love what I do. I totally love what I do. Everything for me is full on, 100%. Whether I start in the morning at 6 a.m. and I finish at 10 o'clock at night, I'd never lack during the day. I can press my little red button over here and I keep going because I love what I do. And I think you can help some people to understand what work ethic is, but if they have it instilled naturally, it's definitely a help to getting them to the top.
What was it like for you when you first stepped into those dance rooms? Did you had that desire to achieve greatness and get to that elite level?
When I was a young child,
Yeah.
I first of all was in the Brownies at age 7, and I was doing, what's that where you resuscitate the dummy?
CPR.
CPR, that's right. And I could hear this music, Moon River, was coming from another room. So I kind of went to the other room. There was a door there with a glass portal. I pulled myself up and I could see people moving. So I was at first attracted to music. It wasn't dance. And I knocked on the door and the gentleman came out and I said, "What are they doing?" He said, "Well, this is the waltz." And then he invited me in and they did a cha-cha-cha to wheels.
And is this your first time?
First time ever seeing ballroom and Latin at the local church hall. We lived on a housing estate. My mum didn't have much at all. And that was when I fell in love with it. And he said, "Actually, we've got children's classes starting on Saturday." So I do believe in fate also. I was drawn by the music. I see the dancing. The children's classes started on the Saturday. And when I went home and told my mum, because I was one of those kids who liked to do everything, she wasn't sure that she could afford for me to do it. But she said she'd give it a chance. And it didn't matter if it was raining or snowing. I walked every week. I never missed. I was never one of those children who missed. If I made a commitment, I stuck to the commitment. And she eventually bought me, I still remember my first pair of shoes. I treasured them with my life. I never lost anything. I was orderly, I was on time, and I was organized from a very, very young child. But that's how it all started. And it was just the most fascinating beginning. And from age 7 to 65 now, it's just couldn't live without my dancing.
What's up, guys? Real quick, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is turning on playoff mode. All customers get a profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Each game day during the wild card round, you'll find a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts waiting for you in the app. Pick the matchups you believe in. Take your shot on an upset or build a parlay that fits the moment. Then apply your profit boost and go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Thanks to FanDuel for sponsoring the podcast, and now back to the interview. What kind of structure did dance give you at that young age?
I already came, my mother said, I never accepted criticism from a young child. So the school teacher said, although my mother did write back and said the teacher would do well to spell criticism correctly. I was always one of those that when we had a birthday party, for example, my mother would pick another little girl to win the singing competition. Well, that would be a drama then. There would be tears and sulking and slamming of doors. And when I look back now, it was only because I wanted to be a better version of myself. Maybe it wasn't so much about the winning as that I wanted the validation from people who were looking at me to say, "You're doing something good." Because raised just with a mother, no father around at all, I was always seeking from my mum, "You're doing good, you're doing good." And my mother's from the old school. They're not overly tactile. They're not overly complimentary. I mean, she's proud of me in every shape or form. So I was always seeking some sort of validation elsewhere,
Were you naturally gifted at it as well?
I wouldn't say I was the most naturally gifted person, but if you did it on a scale of 1 to 10 when it came to work ethic, I exceeded off the chart. So if you gave me a task, for example, and it was difficult to master, like I never won the biggest gold trophy or silver trophy in the children's classes. I didn't win that. Although I always had the highest marks, for some reason they never felt I deserved that. And I just kept working and working and working. And one opportunity after another came. And fortunately for me and my mother, she took on 2 or 3 other jobs. At one point, she was working 4 jobs so that I could dance, to buy me a little dress, which my next door neighbor made, Mrs. Dewey. She made a dress for me and a dress for my teddy bear, which I still have, by the way, dressed in the same dress. And I was just fortunate that we had people around that were willing to help. And although I couldn't have private lessons all the time, I did the best that I could with the private lesson. And then I would be practicing in the kitchen, in the living room, at the bus stop. My mother was always saying, "Oh, sit down, child." I couldn't. I just loved everything about it.
Did you want to make dance your career? Was that an option?
I wouldn't say at that age I wanted to make it. I didn't know what I wanted. All I knew is I liked to get up. I wanted to go to dance. I was always 15 minutes early. I was always the one that stayed 15 minutes after. And of course, then I got from that church hall, I went on to get a little boy partner in Liverpool with a better teacher. Margaret Redmond was her name. Then from there, I got another boy partner and I moved away from home at 14 to live in a place called Yorkshire. And at 16, I went to the Bright Lights of London on my own against everybody who wanted me to go. Nobody thought I should be going, but I wanted to seek out the dancing. I did okay in school, but there was something about music and dance. I had no idea whether I would make it, wouldn't I make it. But if opportunity knocks at your door and you have prepared for what you want to do and what you love, the two really go together. And I think that's what happened to me.
Was that normal for people to leave their family and go pursue dance with their new partner?
No, not back then. And I think my mum thought that, oh, she'll be home in 6 weeks. And I wasn't. I never went back home at 14 when I left, and I never went back home. So, I lived my life. I pursued the dance. I socially mingled with all the best dancers in the world, I was an average dancer, maybe better at ballroom than Latin. So I was 4th in the north of England and maybe the 2nd round in the Latin, something like that. So I danced with the British ballroom champion, Nigel Tiffany. And that's what I loved the most, waltz, foxtrot, tango, quick step, Viennese waltz. That's what I was the best at. And then, of course, at 17, I got the opportunity to dance with Sammy Stopford, and my whole life changed from ballroom to Latin. So you see, but I kept up all 10 dances. I kept it up. And I thought perhaps ballroom was going to be my thing. And then suddenly, a flick of a switch, it became Latin.
How much of a fork in the road challenge thought did you have to go with Sammy?
Well, I was with Nigel. We were doing quite well in the ballroom, living with his family. We moved to London.
So there was a plan
Nigel
already
and I.
in place.
It was a plan in place. We were moving to London together. We got a flat. He was into building society. He had a great job. He got a rent-free flat because we were broke. We hardly had any money. I managed to get a job as an office junior for a job I was underqualified for. And we were going to have family. We were engaged. We were going to get married. And then my teacher called me. I was at work one day and she said, "I've got this opportunity for you." She said, "I think you're a better Latin dancer than you are ballroom. And I have this young man called Sammy Stopford. He's just outside the professional final." She said, "Would you like to do that?" I said, "Well, I'm engaged and this." She said, "I'm giving you a choice." So there's the fork again. There's the sliding door moment, the pivoting moment. And she said, "If you want to do the tryout, it'll be tomorrow at 4:00. When you go home, do not tell Nigel." So I went home. Nigel was doing the ironing. Of course, I told Nigel. And then he gave me a choice. He said, "If you go for the audition, we are no longer together." So, and I wanted the audition, I loved him, but what you think love is at 16. But I wanted this opportunity. So he packed all my clothes in 2 black plastic bags. And then I was just homeless there. It's how I met my girlfriend, Denise Weavers. When I called Nina, she went mad. She said, "I told you not to say anything." She said, "It might not work for you," but I thought, well, it might. And then I went along for that tryout the next day and he looked at me, Sammy, says, "I don't know who you are, Shirley Rich," because that was my name. "But our mutual teacher thinks that you've got some talent in Latin. So let's have a little look." I did one little step backwards with him and he said, "Don't know who you are, but I'm taking you with me." And that was the start of another journey. So I think that the sensitivity and flow as a dancer, I probably had that innate. It was natural for me. And then I moved from London back up to Manchester. So I was all over. I was in Wallasey with my mum, then moved to Shipley in Yorkshire, then to London by 16, and then back up to Manchester by the time I was just turning 17.
With Sammy, what were you chasing? Were you chasing more for dance, for champions?
I think it was just the opportunity for me, suddenly now I was an amateur dancer and suddenly now I'm in the professional, I'm running with the big dogs, as they say, peeing like a puppy. But anyway, so I got this opportunity to go and I went with it and I never looked back and I gave it my all. Very difficult. He had to teach me the ropes. He was just outside the final. And in the short space of time, we skyrocketed from him being outside the final to third in the world when I couldn't get out the second round as an amateur. So the chemistry between Sammy and I was off the chart. The musicality, the flexibility, everything that we had together just gelled. It was like a magical experience. And we went straight to the top by the time we were 18. We won the British Championships by the time I was 22.
So did the two of you really push each other to keep going harder and faster and further?
I didn't push Sammy. Sammy was the one who pushed me. He was a fierce teacher, 4 years older than me. There was no opinion for me. I wasn't entitled to any opinion. Of course, I didn't know anything. And I took everything he gave to me like a sponge. I listened, I learned. Of course, there was tantrums along the way, a few. And yeah, I was just so grateful to him, And then my teacher, Nina, said, I think your name is not correct for this industry, Shirley Rich. We were piss poor broke. We didn't have any money. And she said, I think you should get married. That's what you need to do. You need to get married. So by the time I was 18, I was married to Sammy Stopford. So it wasn't a dating experience. It wasn't where you sort of get to know somebody and go here or go there or do this or do that. It was literally the teacher decides she likes the non-stop Stopfords, Shirley and Sammy Stopford, Sammy and Shirley Stopfords, whatever way round it was. And that's what we did. We got married and that's Sammy and Shirley Stopford skyrocketed to the top of the industry.
What kind of competitions were you winning at that time?
We were winning the United Kingdom Championships, the International Championships at the Royal Albert Hall, the closed British Championships I won by the time I was 18. And then, of course, the big competition was the British Open when I was 22 and won that. I think the youngest person to win that. And I think when I look back now at my life, I was with my mum. There was just her, my brother and I. And then all the way through the industry, it was work, 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 work. And then this relationship with Sammy was slightly manufactured, although I want to say that I do adore him and love him to this day. I always say, what do you know as a young person about love? It's quite difficult, isn't it, when you're young? And then I met somebody else, you see. We went to a competition in Canada, a lady called Miriam Pearson.
You and Sammy.
Sammy and I, and met Shirley Ballas. And he came to the room. I wasn't really paying much attention to him and his partner. And he said, I'd like to bring you to Houston, Texas, to do a competition called the Texas Challenge. Well, Sammy was all about making sure there was enough lessons. The fee was right. So I left him. I went down to the swimming pool and he did that. And then off to Texas we went. So it was in the February we met him. In March we went to Texas. And that was it. That was another pivoting moment where this lovely man, good looking, knew how to all the chat lines, if you know what I mean. And I think him and I at that point fell in love. So then it was very difficult. It was like coming back with Sammy and it all felt so wrong and I didn't really know, what to do with my life. And in the end, I decided I had a world championship coming up and Sammy said, well, if you give up your boyfriend, you can do the world championships with me and we'll carry on. I'll forgive you. And Corky said, if you stay with your husband, I won't be here when you've done your world championship. So both men were non-compromising and they put me in the middle. And then when I asked my mother, she said, you made your bed, you lie in it. You make your own decision. So I decided to move to the United States because I thought, I've won the British, I've won most of all the titles except the World Championship. I think I want to experience what it's like to really be in love. Oh, Lord, have mercy.
Were you and Sammy both self-aware of what the relationship really was?
No, because he adored me and loves me still to this day, and I love him. It's just how life happens sometimes. Then you're given these pivoting moments, sliding door moments. And I decided I wanted to be with Corky. So I went off to see him. But after 6 weeks of being with him, I called my ex-husband and I said, I think I've made a mistake. I'd like to come back. I want to carry on dancing. Maybe what I needed was a good holiday. I look back and think it should have been a holiday. And Sammy said, basically, you were a wallflower when I met you. You'll be nothing but a wallflower. And those words resonated in my head because he went straight back into the top at number 2 with his new partner. And I had to make a decision, was I going to give up forever or should I teach Corky how to dance? Now, he was a pro amateur dancer, so he had a little bit going on, but he wasn't a world-class dancer in the same field that I was in. So I decided I would try my best to teach him how to dance. It was one of the most difficult challenges I ever did in my entire life. I took all the tools I learned from Sammy, all the tools I learned from the housing estate and from my younger self, and I taught it to Corky. And so Sammy and I won the championship in 1983, and in 1995, to cut a long story short, Corky and I came back to beat Sammy. We were first, and he was second.
And was Sammy with his new partner that?
Well, he was second with his partner in 1983,
Uh-huh.
and then first and second in the top two all those years. Corky and I had to go from the first round climbing, till we left Houston in 1990 and moved to England with our little 4-year-old Mark to see if we could get into the final, just to see if we can get into the final. And you know how the story goes. We won in 95 and Sammy was second with Barbara. So it was quite lots of pivoting moments, lots of challenges, not easy for a woman to take a man to win, a little bit easier for a man to take a woman, as it is in this life. But I have to say, Corky had resistance, resilience. People used to say awful things about the dancing and that they'd laugh and didn't think, oh, who does she think she is? She's left and now she thinks she can come back. But I think at the end of the day, I got the last laugh.
When you're winning all these championships with Sammy, is there financial rewards to keep you continuing this, to make this your professional career?
Well, yes, because you then are able to teach, you're able to travel, you're able to adjudicate and demonstrate. So that's how you earn your living so from 17, after I had that unsuccessful job as a secretary, terrible secretary, can't spell either, but never mind. Yeah, it's, what were we saying?
For financial
For
rewards.
financial reward. So as a professional, if you're at the top of your tree, you can earn a good living.
Oh.
And so I was already very comfortable with Sammy. And then, of course, moved to Corky. He came from the Weed Eater family, was comfortable living there. But in the end, it wasn't what I wanted. I realized I really wanted to dance. So that my only choice was to teach Corky how to dance and then leave Houston, Texas and come back to England. And then, of course, taking my little boy, our little boy, all over the world with us from age 4, you know. So it was difficult times. We retired when Mark was 10. But we managed to maneuver and get all those titles that I never thought possible to get again.
When you're competing and you're dancing yourself and you're also teaching, are you feeling the same reward amongst all those different things as long as it's dance-centric?
When it's dance-centric and it's about teaching, it's my life. Like I say, when I go in, I just see music, I see beautiful movement. I can see the people who truly want to learn. And when they want to learn, I want to give 110%. But even with the ones that, let's say, are not so great, also want them to improve. So sometimes it's not always about somebody trying to get in the top 6. It might be somebody trying to get out of the first round to the second round or something like that. So, yeah, I can honestly say that one day when I cease and go to another place, I will be proud of the journey that I've helped other people make and also proud of the journey that my mother and I and my brother, when he was alive, was able to do.
You mentioned maybe someone's trying to just advance their rounds or somebody wants to win. What excites you as a teacher that you want to take on the challenge for somebody?
When somebody tells me I can't, you won't, they're no good, they've no talent, they can't possibly make that result.
You love that.
I love that because I go back to myself. When I was told, you'll never make it with Corky, you're never going to do this in the industry, you left, we're not supporting you. So then I had to learn from 22 years old to 35 all about the industry, the male ego, what makes people tick. Because this industry, unfortunately, is not just about dancing. There's lots of politics that go in it. You've got to understand how you're navigating through it. And I had to learn all that as a woman in a man's world. So I pat myself on the shoulder. I'm quite proud of what I did. And still standing in an industry, probably one of the busiest lady teachers, you know, still there.
How was the American circuit versus the UK?
Well, the UK is a much smaller country, so when we had Mark and Julianne and Derek, we're able to drive everywhere. Every weekend there's a competition. Here in the United States, you have to fly everywhere. So they have the flight tickets and they have the hotel tickets. There's a lot of pro-am, so then The student has to pay for the teacher, and it's a very expensive hobby to do in the United States as versus doing it in England. But I enjoyed my time in the United States. I was here from 22 till I was 30. So I had 8 years learning all about your pro-am divisions, the American smooth, American Latin, not just international Latin and international ballroom.
What was the most surprising thing as you're uncovering the industry, like you said, and relearning it and figuring it out?
Between England and the United States,
Maybe just while you're here in America.
I figured out very early on at 22 that and I mean this with a good heart,
Please.
in England, they're very straight. If you're overweight, they tell you. I don't ever remember getting compliments from my teacher at all. When I moved to the United States, I had to change my thought pattern because here, a lot of people, and again, I say this with a good heart, were slightly entitled. And if you gave criticism, they didn't want to hear it. So it was balancing the criticism, the constructive criticism, with the American way of, oh, have a nice day, or you look so pretty, when you know you look like a dog. Do you know what I mean? You've got no makeup on and you don't feel pretty. So it was a little bit difficult for me at the beginning. I think and my business suffered with it because I was too honest. And now my father-in-law, George Ballas, helped me navigate my way at the beginning when I moved to Houston. And he's the one who set my prices. He's the one who helped me navigate. You know, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, he'd say to me. You're not in England now, you're in the United States. And he was a dancer and he had a big studio, the biggest studio actually in the world, Mr. Ballas had. So I learned a lot from him and my mother-in-law, which I'm truly grateful. They kind of set me up in the United States as to how to be here.
And are you traveling around doing your own teachings?
Well, I don't travel around the United States so much anymore. I always go to Utah, to Salt Lake, to all the boys and girls that you've mentioned. And I come to LA. I teach here while I'm here. Most people fly in so that I can see my grandson and my son, and of course, my wonderful daughter-in-law, and Derek and Julianne.
How did Utah become this central focus of dancers for Dancing with the Stars?
Because it has one of the biggest academies in the world. So it does ballet, tap, theatre, contemporary, ballroom, Latin. There's all the facilities are there. So you might see somebody in the jazz section that you can pull into the ballroom and Latin. And if they're really well trained in ballet and tap and theatre and contemporary, it's quite easy to pull them into the Latin. And that's why we have so many on Dancing with the Stars, because they are fluent in all styles, which makes them wonderful for a TV show.
How is the phenomenon of Strictly Come Dancing?
Strictly Come Dancing in England, we're 54% share of the TV. Everybody who's watching the TV is watching our show. That's not including playback and all these thingy bobbies that they do. But it's the biggest show on TV with the biggest ratings. And I think we bring joy every Saturday to the nation. Everybody gets there, from the youngest child of 4 to grandpa and grandma. They all sit round with their paddles. And it's just, like I say, we're a small country, 65 million, as against the United States, who, you know, you've got all 50, how many states you've got?
50.
There you go. Oh, I got it right. Wow. Not so thick after all. And your show also, Dancing with the Stars, the ratings has now picked up. You know, it's going more into the social media world. The whole Strictly and Dancing with the Stars, plus the other 60 countries around the world, it's much changing now. So, and we've got younger viewers coming in, and it's been quite interesting to watch.
And you're a judge over there.
I'm a judge over there, I am.
A head judge. How do you find balance of compassion and honesty while maintaining that it helps the dancer and for the viewer to understand what's going on?
In 15 seconds, because 15 seconds is all we get in England. We can't rabbit on. We're not on a timer. They're on strict time there. So 15 to 20 seconds, you have to give constructive criticism. You have to be able to read the room. So is somebody sensitive, or do you feel you can push this one a little bit more, or should you soften the edges? I'm pretty good at reading the room. So I base my criticism against what they do each week. I never compare one celebrity to another celebrity. And so it enables me to give anything from a 2 to a 10, according to what I see them do that particular week. And also, I don't know if many of your listeners will know that we get the opportunity to save the couple. So the general public, we give our vote. The general public vote. There's a bottom 2. We decide who stays and who goes home. So we end up often with the best dancers in the final. As we're here, your viewers can chuck off who they want to chuck off. Hence Mark and Whitney. So there you go.
Do you think something like that would be beneficial here on Dancing with the Stars?
Well, I think each country, because I've been to the big meetings where each country has their own vibe, and I think Conrad Green and Dina Katz will know what's better for their country.
Right.
But I know certainly in our country, we end up with a strong final.
Do you think it's harder to give criticism or for you to receive it?
Definitely to give than to receive.
How come you don't want to hurt someone's feelings?
I don't really go out there to intend to ever hurt somebody's feelings. If somebody gives me any back chat, though, and you can always play back the dancing, you know, if somebody, I remember one professional telling me, I said, you need to fly flat in the tango. Well, I did, he said, and he was rabbiting on, and those kind of things I can handle quite well. But I always do try to give constructive criticism. I want them to improve every week. I want to make sure that if we have, how many weeks did we have? I think 14. If we have something like that, I want to make sure in the first 7 weeks that they're picking up good fundamentals, that they understand as a unit what's expected, and they really do improve. I mean, we've had some of the most amazing finals in our country ever.
On Dancing with the Stars, the scoring sometimes is a little wonky, and sometimes the viewers don't feel like they're getting the right numbers. You've thrown out a 2. We haven't seen a 2 in a while. What do you think constitutes a 2?
Well, this last series, we had the most wonderful La Voix on the show, and she was phenomenal. But she did her dance and didn't remember any of it at all, at all. So as I said, when I critique, it would be unfair of me to critique what you just did because you didn't remember any of it. So that for me, it was a 2. I could have actually done a 1, but I don't think I had it in my box. And she understood that, you know, and certainly worked on trying to remember the choreography. I'm a different type of judge, I guess, you know, if it warrants a mark, I give it a high mark. If I think it's average, I stay with the average. I'm never that judge that is concerned about what somebody thinks. If the viewers at home don't like what I score, I appreciate their opinion and they should appreciate mine. I'm not there to score brownie points with the audience or the people on TikTok. I'm there to do the job that I've been born and raised to do. And that I will do to the best of my ability. It might not be what you think, but it's definitely what I feel it should be.
And that's why you're
and
in the
I
position.
can't criticize anybody else's job because everybody, Derek, Kerry Ann, who's a wonderful friend of mine, and Bruno, who I absolutely adore, and cried buckets when he left England because he kind of showed me the ropes. You know, each person does what they feel they need to do. Also, when we have such longevity on our show, you're giving 10s, where are you going to improve here? Where is the incentive to improve when you're whacking out 7s on week 1? When you clearly look at it, and a guest being trained in ballroom and Latin, and you see it's like really not good. It's not good. I mean, I don't think that the audience at home always appreciate the eye that I have, let's say. They're only going off their feelings. They fall in love with somebody. Doesn't matter what you score them, you're never going to get it right. So I stopped worrying.
What kind of responsibility do you feel you have to make sure that the dance stays true to the style so that they do get the appropriate score?
A huge responsibility. You know, I've trained. I was the youngest person to train in the ballroom and Latin at age 16. So I got all my examinations for a very, very young age. I take my job seriously. I don't take myself too seriously, but I take my job quite seriously. And I want to do the very, very best. And if there's something easy, I have a little pair of shoes, a little pair of black shoes, and I show on the deck the heel and the toe and the heel, the inside edge, the outside edge, when it should draw together and be closed beautifully. I want them to all to do to the best of their ability. And if I think somebody's slacking off and not giving the best of what they can do, that will also reflect in how I feel.
With the popularity of Strictly, how has that affected your relationship with dance?
I don't think it affects my relationship with dance because I fell in love with dance at a very young age. My son often says to me, we can go out for dinner, Mum, but let's not talk dancing all night, please. Because if I could sit and talk to you for the next 25 hours on dance, that's what I do. It's all of me. It's every morsel part of me. Every cell in my body is about dance and movement and music. That's what I like.
At what age did Mark start showing a love for it?
I can still remember it when we retired and we went to the after party at the British after we'd won it a second time in 96. I thought, yes, I'll focus everything on Mark. And he tugged my dress and he goes, I think I want to do this, Mummy. I looked at him and I said, you don't want to do this. I do. I want to try. And that's how his career started. I never thought he was, I mean, I had him in social dancing because I wanted him to have some coordination skills. But he made that decision when he was 10.
That he liked it.
That he liked it. And then, of course, then I put him from a very young age with the best teachers and got him a little partner who she took one look at him, Vicky Larman, her name was. She turned to the mother and she goes, I don't want to dance with him. He doesn't know how to do anything. And she was right. She was a finalist. He was a beginner. And I said to the mother, I said, well, if you let me take care of all the expenses, I'll do all that for you. You just turn up and give me 6 months. And within 6 months, he was flying. He was just a gift in ballroom and Latin. So he learned all his skills as a juvenile under 12. All his basic skills, that's how he can choreograph, that's how he knows the footwork and how to put things together because he learned it from a young age. And then as a junior, you know, in the Latin and the ballroom, of course, he won the British Junior Championships with Julianne, British Juvenile Championships, ballroom and Latin with Vicky. So he went on to win many major championships along the way. And then at 19, decided he didn't want to do it anymore. He just said, you're going to have to sit down, have something to tell you. I don't want to do this anymore. I think there's something bigger in the world. And he wanted to go on the stage. He wanted to play his instruments and things like that. Then they got the opportunity for Dancing with the Stars. And there you go. You see all that training as a juvenile. Because even when you go on the show, for me, any professional, I want to say this clearly, they should all seek training. Because you can only take a celebrity so far if you are trained. You have to have some basic training.
With you performing at the elite level, how did you find balance of being a mom and a coach and figuring out how far to push him with dance?
I think that would have been a very good question for Mark. If I look back now, I think I was, my house was a bit like boot camp. You know, there was all sorts of things for them to go to, ballet, tap, music, dance. And I think sometimes I got lost in the dance rather than the motherly skills. You know, like, for example, Derek's mom, Marianne, I used to look and I think, you know, this is a wonderful woman here. She really knows how to balance that beautiful feeling of giving to children. And I was more like, if one of them had the flu, I was like, get your shoes on, off, let's go, keep moving. I remember Derek once saying he didn't feel well enough to go to school, and then he came down and wanted to go to practice at 5. I said, if you're not well enough to go to school, you're not going to practice. I think I was very strict on myself, and therefore I was quite strict when it came to that. But I do often look back and wonder whether I think I missed out on a lot with Mark because I was traveling all the time and demonstrating. My mother took care of him. They have a beautiful bond. And years later, I said to Mark, did you think I was a terrible mother? And he said, you did what you had to do. And it is what it is. Don't fret. And I think that made me feel a bit better.
I've been lucky to spend enough time with him, and he's an incredible person.
An unbelievable human who's still got all his good friends, never been into that A-list lifestyle type of thing, grounded, down to earth, would be there in a New York minute for you. And was there for me when he pushed me to go for the job on Strictly. And still my fiercest critic.
Are you going to all his championship competitions with him and Julianne?
I went to everything, even Derek's World Championship in Warsaw or wherever we went, and he won that. We didn't expect him to win it, so that was nice. Yes, I went with them every week, up and down the motorway in the car, you know, making sure that they were attending all the competitions. They called them the Ballas Brat Pack. All 3 of them would come home with all the big silver trophies. So it was quite a time, and I hope that they learned a lot. I felt that they all learned a lot. And when you see Derek now on the TV and Julianne hosting and Mark doing his Broadway and everybody doing what they're doing, because I had them in everything. I didn't have them in one thing because I always thought to myself, what if they go into music? What if it's dance? What if it's theatre? So I tried to put them in I kept them as busy as I could as teenagers so they wouldn't get in trouble.
And they were all living in your house?
Yes. Yeah. Our house was like a bus station because it wasn't only them, it was all their friends, which we all stay in contact with now. And yeah, it was just what it was at that time, you know. And now suddenly you blink and the little 6-year-old Julianne now is in her 30s and the boys are up there. I won't mention your age.
Could you tell that they were going to be doing something great?
I could, because again, they pushed each other with their work ethic. And they also had pivoting moments where they had to make choices and decisions. Mark started on Dancing with the Stars, and from there he got to go on Broadway. Then he met his wife, and then they became Alexander Jean, and then he decided he wanted to do Dancing with the Stars again, and just so many different things. They're all pivoting moments that only he or she or any of them can make their own decisions on.
What were your favorite memories taking the Ballas Brat Pack all around?
I think the singing in the back of the car and the banter, they all got along so well together, and the banter, and they had each other's back. It's only when they got a lot older I heard lots of stories that they got up to uh, when I wasn't there driving my car, when Derek was underage, and different things that they did. But it's quite a nice unit, I feel.
You mentioned the one competition you didn't expect Derek to win. Why not? What was that competition?
Well, there was two, actually. There was one for Derek that was the World Championships with Aneta Piotrowska, and he was ranked about second or third. And just the way the marks fell, he won that championship with not picking up one first. So we have skating systems. So all the marks were all over the place from first to sixth, and he came through the middle. He won that championship. And then the other one was Julianne and Mark, ranked fourth in the junior division, and they went to the British Championships. I was hoping that they would get third. They were pushing to get third and had the night of their life and ended up first. So they beat all the couples that had been beating them. So they were two special moments, Derek in Warsaw, Mark and Julianne at the British Championships.
And how come Mark and Julianne ended up being partners? They just clicked?
Well, she came over. It was supposed to be for 3 months. It ended up for being a lot longer. Mark had another partner called Vicky. It just seemed to make sense that perhaps Julianne danced with Mark, even though there was a little bit of an age gap. And she was so tiny, so petite and so tiny. He was a little taller, but we made it work through the high heels and everything else. And then, of course, she grew up. I think when you have two talented people and two people with good work ethic, then that also, they used to call them Mr. and Mrs. Stamina. They never flagged. It didn't matter if they had 6 rounds, 7 rounds, 8 rounds. These two children were like Energizer bunnies. They just were able to go and go and go. Because you can be a great dancer, but if you've got no stamina, that it doesn't matter, does it? You've got to be able to go the course.
Are you seeing all these other people who are on Dancing with the Stars now at these competitions that you're driving Mark and Derek to?
Well, we were in England. So, and in the United States, if you're talking about Lindsay and Whitney and Brandon
And Val.
and Val used to come over to England quite a lot.
So, because he would compete against Mark.
He competed against Mark. They've known each other a long, long time. That was fierce competition.
Oh, yeah?
One time Val would win, then Mark and Julianne would win, then it would be Val, then it would be Mark and Julianne. And only when Mark retired, I then had the opportunity to teach Val, get to know his family, it was just such a treat. And I know that when I was in dire straits at one point, that family took me in and they were very good to me. And if I could return something back to their family, I was really grateful to do that.
Are you judging these competitions as well now, today?
Yes. Still adjudicating, my friend, all over the world and enjoying every minute of it, I have to say.
What's your favorite part about that?
Well, I'm one of those judges that if you're ranked first, but you don't turn in that performance, I'm going to go with what I feel deserves to win. As where I feel sometimes people get in a habit of marking first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. I'm not that judge. I'm going to mark what I see without fear or favour on that evening, whether it's strictly or whether it's in the competition world. I mark what I'm experienced enough and delighted to see on the floor. Because I believe it's everything from technique to fluidity, flexibility and personality. If you have no personality, it doesn't matter how good your technique is. So for me, the human body is like a machine in dance. You have to learn all the different styles. You have to learn the quality, the leg actions, the body actions, coordination, the armology, then as a partner, as a unit, and then have this magnificent chemistry that becomes in the team, whether it's pro-amateur, whether it's strictly, whether it's Dancing with the Stars, or whether it's the professional level.
What takes the most brutal part on the body after a fierce dance competition?
Well, I think that we do a championship. We start sometimes at 7 a.m. in the morning and you're going till 11 o'clock at night. Sometimes the competition can be 7 rounds. Like we're running up to the United Kingdom Championships in 2 weeks in England. For people who have to start from the first round, it's fierce. You have to be physically fit. You have to know how to take care of yourself. Because the body might be able to do 1 round, but if you haven't fed it correctly, watered it correctly, taken care of it, just when you need your body to work for you, it'll say, see ya. And then that stamina might cost you a place in the final. It's brutal. It's a brutal industry. It's not for the faint-hearted, and it's certainly not for the people who've got no work ethic.
Do any instances come to mind where you showed up at 90% because you weren't feeling well or something happened previously that week?
Well, several times throughout, you'd get the flu, or I remember twisting my neck when it was a really important. Corky and I were running third at the time, and they gave me an injection into the neck to try to free myself up so I didn't have any pain.
Did that help?
It did, because it numbed everything. Was it the right thing to do? Probably not, because I suffer now with spinal things. But I can't ever say that I personally went into anything, I'm not talking about dance, without giving it 100%.
Uh,
Or giving time. The one thing I can give to people is time. Time is free, but I also want people, when they're taking time from me and I'm taking time from them, that we give it 100% within that time that we have.
Did you watch Dancing with the Stars this season?
Of course.
Do you watch every season?
Of course.
What'd you think?
I thought it was great. I thought the final was great. Of course, I was disappointed that Mark didn't make the final with Whitney. I thought she was a great dancer, but your country spoke and they took off who they felt went off. So one has to respect that. They've got the vote. I thought everybody in the final did extremely well. I loved Robert Irwin. I thought he was fantastic. I thought Whitney did a beautiful job. Ezra making the final for the first time.
Second season in.
Second season in was absolutely remarkable. I still have the little teddy bear he gave me when he was a tiny little fella. It's a little bumblebee and it's all striped, and he gave me that. I still have that. And to see him now as a grown-up man going on there and pursuing something that he loves and watching him grow was also fantastic. I thought the whole thing was great.
How do you hold such a special relationship with all these different kids that you've trained over the years?
Respect. I think if you give people respect, they give it to you.
You remember training him as a kid?
Of course, all of them. I mean, Lindsay and her family, her mother's one of my very best friends, and Josh, So I go back and it's just like knowing them all as children, seeing them all in the little class, and then you see them grow up. And Riley, I mean, I've got pictures of Riley when she was a tiny little thing sitting on my knee, and then to see her grow and blossom into the most beautiful young lady, because this talent is also great, but the human heart is bigger than any ounce of talent that you will have. And that's what I'm so proud with the children I've trained, particularly my son, that heart and that respect for other people. I thought the way he carried himself, and I wrote to him after he got eliminated, how he carried himself with grace and charm shows the true spirit of a great person and a great dancer.
With as much as you've accomplished, can you see who has it and who doesn't?
Of course.
Right from a young age, even?
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that you can't teach somebody.
They can adjust.
They can adjust. I sometimes always say it's not the best dancer. I've known great dancers not win world championships. I've known people who've slogged and worked and got that great work ethic and somewhat gifted win. So don't think just because your talent is never enough. Talent is just something you might be blessed with, fluidity and all the things that we need. But if you haven't got the other tools, that want, that desire, and that work ethic, if you haven't had that, I can almost guarantee you're not going to win.
That hard work, the determination.
And also wanted to mention Val, when he was in the final as well. He did an amazing job with his young lady.
So good.
Yeah. Special, Val. I feel he's special. He was a gifted dancer, still a gifted dancer, but as a competitor, he was one of the best in his field, I felt.
Do you remember seeing him step out that first time against Mark?
I can still see it, yes. It was quite competitive. But they formed a relationship. I remember when Mark used to come to New York, Val's parents would take him. Was always very polite. I don't ever remember it being rude or mean, or it was just accepted. It is what it is. If I'm good enough, I win. And if I don't, they've all helped each other, these boys and girls. And to see good manners and a great heart is even more precious than seeing the dancing.
Val's great. Mark's great. I think that's what attracted me so much to the show, was seeing how kind people are off camera.
Yeah.
They don't just turn it up just for that moment.
Well, it is who you are. If you're that character off the floor, then you're true to yourself and your authentic self. If you try to fake something, the public will see through anything that's faking, or at the end of the day, you can't be one person here and one person there. You are who you are, I feel, at the end of the day.
When you're judging on Strictly, how often are you surprised at the celebrity's journey of how well they're doing?
Well, sometimes on Strictly, we get our call of 15 celebrities, and sometimes I've never heard of them. They're famous in their own right. And of course, the trolls go on and, oh, what's this? What's this? But after a couple of weeks, everybody falls in love with somebody. They start to fall in love with people. And then they have their favorites. And then when their favorites go home because they put them in the bottom two, they're furious. But somebody's got to go home every week. That's what I'd love to keep all 15 celebrities, but we can't. We have to send everybody process of elimination, our vote, the public vote, and then, of course, the judges. We had an incident where we had 2 great dancers that went into the dance-off, and both of those people I thought should have been in the final. So the public voted them into the bottom, and they were both great, and then we had to send somebody home. And that, I've never cried on something like that before, but I was very sad that Lewis had to go home. He was amazing. He would have been great in the final, but it is what it is.
When do you start to form your favorites?
I don't have favorites.
None.
None at all.
Everyone's an
I
even
don't
playing
have
field.
favorites at all. I can't afford to have favorites in my own industry, and I appreciate everybody on both sides of the coast, but if you form any form of attachment whatsoever, it blocks your mind and how you feel. And I was very pleased for the little girl that came also from Salt Lake. That was Alexis. I know she tried for Dancing with the Stars and was unsuccessful on getting on that show. And we put her on Strictly, and she ended up second. So there you go. You had a Utah young lady with her beautiful TikTok star, George, who also was lovely on the show. So
She was on Strictly.
yes, but she's from Utah. She lives in the United States. But she wanted to get on Dancing with the Stars. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, they didn't feel she would get on the show. Then we decided that we would take her. And she did marvelously well. So that felt a little bit of home, somebody from the US in the show.
Are there any American pros that you think would do great on Strictly?
I think all the pros. I think any pro around the world would be great on any show. So I think all the boys and girls are out there doing their very best.
Are there any American celebrities that you would want to see on Strictly?
Tom Cruise, come on Strictly and pay me for that full afternoon that you didn't pay me.
Do you know how much it is? Do you remember?
I don't remember, but I know I took him for the whole afternoon. And I remember saying to Mark, I didn't get paid for that. And he said, it was an experience. You got to dance with Tom Cruise. And I got a photograph, which was worth far more than the private lesson. But it became a standing joke. It was the first time in history I'd never been paid for a lesson.
Do you know the British rock band Nothing But Thieves?
I do not.
They're one of my only invoices that I haven't been paid for as well.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was from the record
Okay.
label. They're great. Can we fire through some rapid fire questions?
Well, of course. Of course.
One word to describe Latin dance.
Oh, one word to describe. I would have to say it's passionate.
What's the most underrated dance quality?
Technique.
How so?
Because people don't bother to learn it. So technique is when you learn about the steps, not just the actions. It's
The fundamentals of it?
the fundamentals. People get bored with fundamentals. They raise their eyebrows, oh, like, not that again. What they don't realize is it's like ballet, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, the plie, the arms. You do it every day. It's your warm-up. They're your skills. So I feel that, I just want to be careful how I say this. I feel that some people that get on these shows around the world, they like the fame, they like the fortune, they like to be recognized. They want to be that person who makes the final, but at the end of the day, they're not prepared to put in the work it takes to be a great professional. And that kind of sits with me not right. And I understand that it's a TV show, before everyone goes off there. I understand it's a TV show, but it's also nice to be able to give a quality, even if it's at the basic level of quality. And you can be ongoing on these shows and still take private lessons. Or some of our professionals are in off-season, honing their skills. That's why it's always difficult, because we're pretty even matched over there. They're all learning their skills. I just would like around the world that people understand that it's not just always about fame and fortune.
When you were competing, did you stick to the same teacher, or would you go around trying to get different?
Well, back in my day, which was a long time ago,
Not that long.
you had one bass teacher.
Who taught you everything?
Who taught you everything. And then you might have a guest lesson now and again. But the world is a political animal now in all countries. So some people can have up to 20 teachers, which I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's just the way the system works. And I find it far more political today than it ever was back when I was competing.
Did you have any dance classes this week while you're here in
And
America?
I did, of course. Yes, every day, 6 a.m. in the morning till some ungodly afternoon. Just gave myself an hour to come and see you, get dressed, really, throw a pair of eyelashes on, you know.
We're doing this on New Year's Eve. Thank you so
New Year's
much.
Eve, absolutely. I watch your podcasts and I watch the boys and girls that go on, and you seem so friendly and you've got that nice smile. So I thought, oh, this could be something lovely to do, you know. So
Thank you so much. When I was researching you, I was so excited because I love talking to people who are obsessed with something.
I'm obsessed. Obsessed to a fault, Mark, right? Obsessed. You know, I would love my grandson Banksy to dance, of course. So when his parents go out on a night out, I'll be teaching him the cha-cha-cha. Mark will be at home going, oh, my God, mother.
Look, he can samba.
But maybe he'll be a musician. I think, like I say, everybody should do everything. Get your fingers in all sorts of pies when you're young, because you never know what moment is going to come up that'll shift you to a new direction.
Unbiasedly, when you heard Mark didn't want to do dancing anymore and then he went back to dancing, how'd you feel about that? As a
With
mom.
As a mum, I would have loved Mark to have stayed in the dancing, but I also appreciate his talent as a musician. But when he got the opportunity to come back to Dancing with the Stars later on, and Conrad asked him, and we love Conrad Green, and we just love him. I think he's fantastic. And Mark said, oh, Conrad's asked me to come back, Mother. And I wanted to like pick him up and hug him, but I kept myself calm. And I said, well, Mark, you must do what you feel. He goes, well, what do you feel? I said, well, it's what you feel. And in my heart was going boom, 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 boom. Please do it, please do it, please do it, like a 2-year-old. No. And then when he decided and he announced, I've decided to do it, I was like, oh, yes, entertainment, choreography. Because even when him and Whitney got a chance to do their freestyle, and he only had, I think, 48 hours, 24 hours, something, to do it on Call My Daddy, was it?
Call Her Daddy, yes.
Call Her Daddy. And he got chance to do that. It was just thrilling, because had he made the final, you know, I always think that Robert Irwin was going to win. Maybe the freestyle might have got lost, but now I feel it had a platform, and it had a platform that was based around the bullying and the trolling and the not kind remarks. I feel that you can dislike something, so I'll direct this to everybody who feels that they have to write some awful things to not only my son, but myself and other boys and girls that are on the shows. You don't have to agree. You don't have to like something. You can absolutely dislike it, but there is a way of saying things. Not that people need to burn in the fires of hell. And, you know, somebody drew a coffin for me and put me at the end of the coffin, and there was a digger at the other end, and die, you bitch, burn in hell. What has that got to do with a cha-cha-cha? Do you understand? I mean, where do these people come up with these ideas? So that's why I was delighted that Mark got, and with Whitney, got to share the tough time that she had on the show, and the fact that ABC came together with
Her daddy.
Call Her Daddy, was just phenomenal for me, because if anything, it was sending a message, and maybe the younger generation, and for the children that are bullied on a regular basis, maybe this will help. And you know, mental health is very important for me. I'm an advocate for CALM, Campaign Against Living Miserably. I'm the ambassador of that charity, and it's very important to me that young people feel good. And some of the things that the professionals in the United States had to endure to, it was unfathomable for me that they were getting messages like they were getting, and the same in England. So it's everywhere. It must be the new generation who feel they are entitled to just say what they think. But I'm okay with you say what you think. It's just, do you need to be so abusive? And I wonder, when it's your child going to get that kind, how are you going to feel when you're grown up and the boot is on the other foot? I wish people would think before they speak a little bit. And I feel very strongly about young people's mental health. It's more important. I have to start with the mental health before I can ever get a champion.
The way that I've always viewed it is that, imagine when you were younger and you're flipping through the channel and you just say whatever you want. Now kids are throwing it on a comment and it just happens to get to the person on the screen.
And laughing about it, I saw bunches of girls, you know, like I'll use Whitney because obviously she danced with my son, jumping up and down and dancing around and really gloating. We voted them off. No, you didn't vote them off. You just didn't vote for them. You can't vote them off. You just didn't vote for them, and then they got to go home. But just the world that we live in. I mean, I have somebody now who does my social media who goes through it, because even as an older lady, let's say, some of the comments are unbelievable. They really are. In fact, I know Mark read one of his comments on his podcast that he did with that
Call her daddy.
Call You Daddy. I couldn't read some of mine. They were even far worse than the ones that Mark was reading, and his were bad enough.
My audience is lovely. We're only going to do positive comments.
I love that.
Do you know the rock band Busted?
I recognize the name because obviously Mark and Derek liked Busted.
Oh, yes,
So
yes.
it wouldn't be a genre. I like 80s music. If it's not 80s music for me, I don't even want to go to the party.
What would you say is your favorite style of dance to choreograph to?
Favorite style of dance I like to choreograph to? I love anything that's theatre arts. I love anything that's American smooth. I love that kind of choreography. Of course, ballroom and Latin goes without saying, but I do like the other genres of dance as well. And I'll have a go at anything. I'm not a lifter, but I can certainly work on a theatre arts piece to make sure that it's seamless, that the lifts go in beautifully and exit beautifully. So I just love anything in the world of dance that's beautiful. And even if it's an ugly position, I still think it can look beautiful. I love quality. Anything that comes to quality, I love.
What's one performance on Strictly that you'll never forget?
I would have to say it was Rose with Giovanni. She was deaf, and they did a piece to some music, and then the music went silent, and they continued to dance, and then the music came back in. So Chris McCausland also with Diane Buswell. He was totally blind. He didn't even see shadows. So he had no idea in the room where he was. He thought he was going to last to week 3, and he went on to be one of the most fantastic people I'd ever seen in my life. And he went on to pick up that trophy, an experience for all of us. It was emotional. So I like those kind of things when they're slightly challenging, perhaps, and they come out and they're able to do things against all the odds. So I've seen a few in my time.
For you to see something like that, does that like...
It'll live rent-free. Sometimes things live rent-free in your head forever and ever. And I also love things like my son that sends a message. I know when he's choreographing, there's always a message in what he wants to send. And I love that kind of work too. I don't like anything that's just slapped together for the sake of doing it. If you can create a message, a narrative, a storyline, and you can follow it from the beginning of the dance till the end of the dance throughout the music, I think that's really quite beautiful.
Have you always had that idea of dance with purpose?
Yeah, I think from a very young age, dance has had purpose for me. Watching any level of dancing, whether it's children, whether it's adults, whether it's pro-amateurs, whether it's strictly Dancing with the Stars, if it moves to music, I'm there for it. I want to see it. I want to learn it. I love going to Derek's rehearsals when he puts things together. I love going to Mark's dance classes when he puts something together. I like to see what makes people tick. How do you be the best at what you do is definitely through studying, through pushing boundaries, and from being all that you can be. And I love that kind of work.
Have you ever fallen out of love with dance?
Only when I left Sammy and I moved to America to be with Corky. For 6 weeks, I thought, oh, this is great. They're going to have to get up every day and do 8 hours of dance. And after 6 weeks, I wanted to go back to Sammy. And of course, that's when he said, no, you can't come back. I have a new partner. And I just fell out with it for just that brief second because I'd done it from so young. And I think I'd had no teenage years. But I fast fell back in love with it, with Corky and the journey that he and I made, which was a journey that will go down as being historic. Corky and Shirley Ballas will be a historic journey because it was against all the odds. It was swimming upstream. And again, I look back and I think he endured an awful lot of criticism, but he taught me to be bulletproof, that when people send those bullets, they stop at the jacket. They're not going to penetrate your heart. And work ethic, he definitely had that. I think that's where all the kids also, myself, they got it from. And he was resilient. And well done to him for coming back to win all championships against all the odds. And it was against the odds.
When you were pregnant with Mark, when did you stop dancing? At what point?
Well, I was teaching the night before, or waddling. So I taught all the way up until the day he was born. And I stopped competing probably about 6 months. I wasn't really showing very big. 5 or 6 months was my last competition.
Wow, but you were still going up until the...
Oh, yeah, he was shaking and baking in there, I'll tell you. It's like a washing machine.
What's going on? What's the biggest mistake dancers make when they're trying too hard to be perfect?
Well, first of all, for me, there's no such thing as perfection. People strive for it, but I think that if you set those boundaries for perfection, you will fall short every time. So I got rid of that word out of my vocabulary a long time ago. But I feel the whole dancer is somebody who wants to study first the human interaction with themselves, find out about what style you're doing, understand what you're doing, and then ticking all the boxes. So there's probably about 30 boxes that you can tick as a Latin dancer. So from your feet to your leg actions, your body actions, your hip actions, your flexibility, fluidity, your arm styling, armology as we call it, to posturally, can't do anything without posture, can't do anything without a musical ear, and that chemistry and that love with the minute that your foot touches the wood and the music resonates with your body, that you transport to another world that everybody thinks you're slightly strange. I think my son thinks I'm slightly strange because I just adore it. Every part of the body that moves. And studying, I'm still studying to this day. I like to read books that other people write about dance. Like I say, I may have a great job on Strictly and I have a full-time job in dance, but I never stop learning and I never take anything for granted.
Have you danced with anybody recently that just completely blew you away?
Yeah, I have some dancers in England. Nobody would know who they are, but I can tell you what my biggest wish is.
Please.
My biggest wish as a mother is that I would be able to dance something with my son on Strictly Come Dancing or on Dancing with the Stars. I think it would resonate for every household in the country because I feel like I can still move and I can still do what I like to do, and that's something I'm putting out in the universe. It's something I got to do a Viennese waltz with him on the top of his rooftop at some point, and that was just something I will have with me forever. But I would like to do a serious number with him. I would like to be on the other end of understanding how he choreographs. I choreograph to numbers, he choreographs to the lyric. And I love his dynamic flow. I love his creativity. I would love to have that experience as if I was his student. So I would really like to share that.
If the two of you work together, how would that choreography work? Would you work on it together?
I believe that Mark would probably come up with the concept with the narrative of the music, what kind of music we're dancing to, what his feel and thought was. But I'd like to think at the end of the day, he'd also take on board my capabilities,
The collaboration.
the collaboration of what's going on. But ultimately, I would like it to be choreographed for me by him.
That's beautiful.
That's something I would like to do, and I know that they were interested in having him over there at some point to do some choreography. That was all in the mix, but then, of course, with Dancing with the Stars, he wasn't able to do that. So I'm hoping in the future that he and I, on some journey, whatever journey it might be, get to work together on some sort of collaboration. So we can all have our wish lister.
If you could pull the strings, what kind of song would it be?
I loved the song that he used with Whitney, so I would like something that's lyrical, that's slow, and that's a piece of music that everybody could resonate with, that has a magic to it, that people could go back in their memories and remember. I like the golden oldie music. I like something that people can go, oh, I remember that. Oh, I remember that. Definitely not to some of those rock bands that Mark likes. He likes the rock bands.
No Slipknot.
He was on Broadway in Frankie Valli, Jersey Boys. I mean, some piece of music that people love those kind of shows, so.
When your son's listening to Slipknot growing up, what'd you think? My mom had the same reaction.
Oh, he had posters all over his wall. I remember him painting his face white with big black things on it and all his hair. And my mother, because she lived with us at the time, she goes, "It's a phase, darling. It's a phase." And, all those Nirvana and all those punk bands. And, yeah, we did have earphones in our ear, little earplugs, I should say.
I had some fans write in some questions as well.
Oh, how nice.
Do you have a favorite routine from Mark?
Well, I think this last one that I have a lot, with Sadie and some of the everything he does is a bit quirky and he adheres to those people that he's choreographing for. But I think the one that resonated and made me the most emotional was this one with Whitney because of the message of bullying, because I think it can resonate with everybody in the world at the moment. It was such a meaningful piece, and it was lovely to see where she started with all this joy on the show to where she went into that dark place and to how he helped her, she helped him come out of that dark place, and they did it their own way. And they bypassed and went much further than any troll could have ever put them in. So that had a really strong meaning. But I have to say, through the years, he's given me such a delight with some of the numbers that he's done.
Are there any scores that you wish that you could have changed, or if you would ever guest judge on Dancing with the Stars in the States?
On Strictly Come Dancing, I can honestly say there was not a mark that I would change. I don't
The
go.
score is the score.
The score is the score for me. I don't go back. I don't think, oh, should it have been? Oh, and I look back at it on the TV and well done. That's right. To be honest, and shock factor also. If it's that bad, I mean, why do I have to give it a 5 if it's that bad? If
Like,
somebody
a 5.
cannot remember their program from the beginning, she's a good friend of mine, Lavoie. If she cannot remember from the beginning to the end, I cannot critique it. There was nothing to critique. So why would I try? So that's just how I feel. If I came to judge as a guest judge, which maybe in the future I'd like to do that, on Dancing with the Stars, it would be myself with the knowledge that I could bring, fair, without fear or favor, and what I feel that I can bring and help. But if it's a 2, it's a 2. If it's a 10, it's a 10.
I'd love to see you throw out a 2.
Never too early for a 10 from Shirley, and it's never too early for that 2.
I hope you ask Shirley about her run on Bear Grylls' show.
Good Lord, that show. So I thought I would take myself out the comfort zone, like the celebrities take themselves out, and go into the jungle with Bear Grylls with 15 other people I did not know.
On Netflix now.
On Netflix now, and try my hand at that. And I think I did fairly well on it. I was the oldest on it. I wanted to keep everything spotless and clean. I was sort of like everybody's Marjorie Proops. They were all coming with their problems. And it was a fantastic experience. And I'm glad, even though my mother wouldn't speak to me for a week because she thought I was going to be doing all these sorts of things in the jungle, which I was. And she feared a little bit for my safety and all the medicine I had to take not to get malaria and this, that, and the other. But I like challenge. I like challenge. I'm not sure how Mark would have done in the jungle. He doesn't like spiders. I can hear him, and we have to put this. Maybe people don't know that. He doesn't like spiders or insects at all. But I'm actually was okay with that. I hit a tree, and all the little ants seem to jump on you, and then they start biting you. But I'm okay with that. I like challenge.
What else do you have coming up?
Well, all sorts of things, and some of them are, like I've got the 6-part series I was telling you with the TV show, and there's some other things that I've been asked to do that may involve being in this country, but I can't divulge them at the moment, and all sorts of things at home which are not signed and sealed, so again, can't mention them. But 2026 is certainly looking like it's an exciting year for me.
Thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you very much for having me. You're such a delight. And to all the boys and girls who've been on before, it's such a joy because they all tell me how much they loved it.
It means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. See you guys. That was so good. Thank you so much for watching the interview with Shirley Ballas. If you have any requests for future guests, leave a comment down below. Also, make sure to give a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button, as I have a ton of other Dancing with the Stars contestants and pros on the podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. Today's conversation is brought to you by FanDuel.